Coming up on Issues and Answers, State Minister for Education, Youth and Information, Floyd Green, shares his plans for the youth sector. Quick and healthy breakfast meals to give your child a healthy start on their day. These and more are coming up. This is Jamaica Magazine. I am Theodore Henry. Welcome.
Violence against women and girls is a human problem, not just a woman's problem. It's a problem for men too. Gender violence takes many forms, including sexual assault, domestic violence, relationship abuse, sexual harassment, and sexual abuse of children. The magnitude of ongoing violence against women and children in our country is cause for alarm. We can end the violence. It requires all of us to end the violence. I call on all our men and women in Jamaica to take a stand. And men, especially, must get involved in this movement to create a better world for their daughters, their mothers, their sisters, their aunts, their uncles, their fathers, their sons, and for themselves. Let's protect and reassure. Let's unite to end gender violence.
Having found the formula for energizing our youth, E equals MC squared, which means energizing the mass of youth through creativity and culture, Minister Floyd Green sits in on Issues and Answers to share more on his plans for Jamaica's youth and the effectiveness of the formula.
Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. Today we speak to the Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Mr. Floyd Green. We're going to be talking about his sectoral presentation, which was given last week and which had a number of interesting points. Thank you so much for your company. Mr. Green, good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
There was quite a lot to chew on in your sectoral presentation last Wednesday. Among those things was your announcement of an increase in the allocation from the Heart Trust NTA to the Student Loan Board.
Yeah. Well, you know, we are always cognizant of the difficulties that some of our citizens have to access tertiary education. It's something that at the Ministry of Education we take very seriously. You know, I myself benefited from the Student Loan Bureau. And that's how I was able to get my first degree at UWI Mona. So we always look to see how can we make it easier for students to access tertiary education. So, you know, we've been doing a number of things between the Ministry of Finance and ourselves at the Ministry of Education. You may have heard that we've reduced the interest rate in relation to some of the loans. So the pay-as-you-study loan, it used to be 9%, it's now to 6%. And I heard the Student Loan Bureau saying it's the lowest interest rate across the board for education-type loans. And also the postgraduate loans used to be at 13%. We've moved that down to 9%, and we're also introducing some loans for specific growth areas, which will again be at 6%. So we're taking a whole raft of approaches. And you know, we now calculate interest rates, and this started last year on the reducing balance method, which makes a significant difference in terms of how much you actually pay back. But one of the things that we have been looking at the Ministry of Education, we normally support the Student Loan Bureau through the Heart Trust. We started it a few years ago with specific loans targeted at technical and vocational training in those areas. So we would have given over the last year 100 million.
Yes.
But when the board met this year and we looked at the situation, we looked at the surplus, one of the good things that I was happy to announce is that we've now increased that subvention. So this year we'll be giving the Student Loan Bureau $213 million to finance loans specifically
that's
towards...
over 100%.
That's over 100% increase.
Of what was given last
of
year?
what was given last year. And you know, we also have our JAMVAT program, which we provide 30% of the cost of tertiary education. So people can apply, and the good thing with JAMVAT is not a loan, it's a grant, but you have to do volunteer hours. So you have to give some service to the community. And last year we were able to help 1,300 of our tertiary students, help them pay their fees, and we're looking to match that number and go further this year. So we've taken a raft of approaches to increase the amount that we provide to the tertiary sector. I think it's very important.
So that government is boosting access to tertiary education?
We have to, because the reality is that we say to our young people, work hard, do hard at primary, do hard at secondary, and then we want you to go further. And we all know how the direct correlation between a tertiary education, upward social mobility. So we're saying to our young people, we want, when you come to that stage, we don't want you to have to kill the dream. We want to enhance the dream. And one of the things that we're working on now is for our PATH students. We want to ensure that if this is a PATH household, a child has qualified for the university, first in the household to have qualified for the university, we want to finance their education, their tertiary education. So we're trying to make it much more easy to access tertiary education.
What's happening, Minister, with regard to secondary education? How's the government doing?
Well, you know, you would have heard that we have taken the very firm stance that it cannot be that a mother or a father has their child at home and they're unable to send them to secondary school because they can't pay the auxiliary fees. We can't countenance that in our Jamaica. So we're saying that no child should be turned back because they can't afford. So we introduced a policy of non-mandatory fees. And you know, I know there were some fears, there were some concerns, and we took them, we listened, but we were adamant that we had to ensure that every child can go to school. So we increased the subvention. So it used to be 11,500 per child. We moved it to 19,000 to say to schools, let's remove mandatory fees. And also, we changed how we structure the payment model. I think one of the good things having Minister Reid, who understands the school system, him being a school principal, he knows how to make it work. So we gave our first tranche of payment, I think it was in July, so that schools could prepare for back to school. And then we kept moving. We gave a tranche in September, we gave in November, we're giving the last tranche now, so that all throughout the year, the school is adequately funded. And one of the things that we're very happy is that the start of the school year went smoothly.
Yes.
And to be honest, you haven't heard any discussions anymore.
Not at all.
You know, and so what we're doing this year, we're continuing that level of funding, but we're saying no, allow us to focus on primary education in terms of the increase in funding. And one of the things that we've seen.
I want to take a break here,
Yes.
Minister. When we come back, we talk more about what's being done in the area of primary education. Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Floyd Green, speaking to us on Issues and Answers. Take a break, but we'll be right back.
No, son. A verb is an action word.
Parents need to become more involved in their children's education.
Parents are the first and in many cases the most important teachers.
Read with your children. Review their schoolwork. Visit their school.
Tapping and rapping and slapping, I said.
Nice. High five. Woo!
A good education will never decay.
Welcome back. We're speaking on the issues of education and youth. Today we have with us the Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Floyd Green. And you were saying at the break, Minister, I think you were going on
So at our primary schools, we normally give a subvention of $800 per child to deal with the general upkeep and maintenance of the schools. Nowhere near sufficient. So we've looked back at our budget and we think now that we've dealt significantly with the issue of access to secondary, we need to now help our primary schools.
Okay.
So we have moved that subvention in this year's budget from $850 to $2,500 per child, a significant increase. But we have recognized that our primary schools are in tremendous need. You know, last year we raised the grant, but this year we're taking it a step further. And we're giving them a lot more latitude so that the issues that occur, the maintenance challenges, just remedial issues in relation to infrastructure support, that the primary schools would have much more space, fiscal space to do what needs to be done.
Minister, what's been done in terms of early childhood education? Is the government placing a strong emphasis on secondary and tertiary education at the expense of
Absolutely
That's
not.
not true.
You know, absolutely not. And that's not true. I think we all, and it's something that we've studied, we all recognize that the most critical years is the first 8 years, fundamental. And you know, for a long time we've had an early childhood commission and they've set standards and they've done a good job of laying out the framework, going into schools, doing the inspections. A lot of the schools know what they need to do to reach a certification level, but a lot of them haven't been able to do it. So what we have been doing is taking the concept of certification to the schools in a very real way. We spent last year strengthening the core support of the Early Childhood Commission. There are a lot of positions unfilled, developmental officers, inspectors, IT managers. We filled those core positions.
Government did.
Yes, so that the institute itself is much stronger. You know, the Early Childhood Commission has now gone fully paperless. Their system is fully paperless, so we're looking at the efficiency of the overarching structure, and now we're going into the institution. So we've done what we call certification fairs, taking the conversation to the schools. So, you know, one of the difficulties is that the schools require police records, they require health, food handlers permit. Some of the practitioners would say, boy, it was difficult coming into Kingston. So in the certification fairs, they can come to those fairs, sign up then and there. Because what we're on now is a drive for certification. When we took over, there were 4 schools that were certified. So
Only 4?
Only 4. So what would have happened is that a number of the schools, they reached the basic requirement, so they're registered, but they have not fulfilled all the requirements to be certified. What we're trying to move them now from having the basic requirements of registration to reach to the full requirement of certification. And in the past year, we've moved from 4 to 30 schools by taking the conversation. Now, one of the issues clearly is resources. We still have a mixed early childhood sector where we have infant departments, which are government, but we have a lot of private run homes, run early childhood centers. So what we have been saying is that we need partnership. And we've reached out to our NGO community, we've reached out to our private sector, and to be honest, a number of them have answered the call. You know, Digital Foundation has committed to pump 15 million to help 5 early childhood institutions become certified. So we call this the Drive the Partnership for Certification. You have like the National Baking Company. They're pumping 70 million to provide equipment in our early childhood institutions so we can deal with that standard that treats with quality of education. And then the recent one, Restaurants of Jamaica, they're coming on board to deal with the breakfast program of over 35 institutions. So we're saying to more people, look in your community. Look at the basic school that you went to. What we have done as government, we've gone in and we've done the report card. Get the information, help them to reach certification.
Good. Children's Services, Minister, what's being done in that
Well,
critical
you know,
area?
very critical, very exciting area, a very fulfilling area, but a very difficult area. Unfortunately, we have a high levels of abuse of our children. You know, at last check, we were at 13,000 cases, reports for a year. That was 2015. That's over 1,000 in each year. One of the things that we took the year to do was to go around and speak to our partners. We have our private home owners. We have our foster parents, over 800 people who've opened up their homes for children. Our private home owners, we have about 49 private homes, and then the others are government run. And we listen to some of the critical concerns. Clearly, resources is always a concern, but also some simple things. You know, one of the things they indicated that they were having significant difficulty when their children get ill and interacting with the public health system. So we met with Minister Tufton, and we're working out now a plan for our primary health facilities, our clinics, that if they can dedicate a day where our children of the state can go in and be treated with. But we've taken it a step further. So one of the things that we did is that in each parish, we have now an arrangement with a doctor where a child of the state, whether it be a foster child, whether it be a child in their children's home, once they get ill, it's an emergency, they need a checkup, the resources are hard to come by, they can bring that child to that doctor. And that doctor will do it free of cost, well, not free, but free to the parent, free to the caregiver, and bill the CDA. And I think that will go a far way in making it easier. Another big thing, the foster parents said they were having difficulty getting their children on their health insurance because they were having some trouble saying it's not, although they're fostering the child, it's not their biological child. And we're saying we can help to fix that. So we met with insurance providers, and now I was happy to announce in Parliament that foster children will now be added to the health insurance policies of our foster parents. Another big one is that the NHF card will now become available for our children of the state. So now you know the NFF program, there's some medication that they can get that will now become available for children of the state. So we're very, very happy in relation to that. And we've been working on adoption, because one of the things we're trying to do is when they come into our care, if we have people who are qualified, who can give them a home, who wants to give them a home, we have to find a way to place them there. And we think it's very, very important. And we were able to place last year 160 children out of our care into loving homes and families. And we did that. We were able to reduce the process by removing one of the aspects. It used to be a two-tiered process. We've removed the first tier, but still ensuring that we're doing the relevant checks to ensure that the children are being placed in homes that are suitable.
Mr. we're running out of time, but we have
Yes.
to touch youth policy, which is directly
Yes,
under
yes.
your portfolio.
Yes.
What's the advance
Well,
there?
well, the youth policy has been in abeyance for some time. We think it's very, very critical to have an institutional framework. I said to the young people last year, give me a year. Let's look at what you have said for the green paper. Let's update it. I'm very happy to announce that the youth policy has been updated. It went to our senior policy team. It's been approved, and now we're sending it off to cabinet. And we expect that by July, we'll be tabled the new youth policy. And we think it's very, very, very important. So, big move in relation to youth policy. Another youth issue is that we've been really working on placing our young people in jobs, work experience. One of the things that we find is that young people need the employability skills in terms of having gone into an actual work environment. So when we came in, we found our summer work program at 5,000 placements. We challenged the team and we were able to move to 6,000 placements. And now we're targeting 8,000 and beyond for this year. And that's already programmed in the budget. Right, but the other one I want to speak about is our graduate work experience program, because we're very happy about this program. What it does, it takes graduates from the universities, gives them a 6-month internship. We placed last year, the year before we came in, 350. Last year, again, I challenged the team. We were able to place 500. But importantly, of the 500 we placed, 213 have secured permanent employment. That's 42%. Now that is what we mean when we say we're elevating youth. And that was the theme of the presentation. How can we move our youth from one state of being to another? We're taking them to a new level, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you very much, Minister. Concrete achievements there, spoken by Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Honorable Floyd Green. We thank you for your company on Issues and Answers. Next week we'll be back. Until then, Ian Boyne wishing you a pleasant day.
Stand up and get in the race.
I can become the master of my destiny.
Step up your stride, make we work like a harder. Do it like Veronica, more than a supper.
We can rise above the challenges and shine.
Was with passion in your heart. Make a plan and stop all the idling. You think that's so? We reach our aging. I can, you can. Like our Olympians, every Jamaican can.
Breakfast is an important meal of the day. Get your child active in the kitchen with this easy yet nutritious recipe.
Welcome to our kitchen. Today I have assisting me, Sapphire. We're doing some easy breakfast meal ideas. The meals are so easy to prepare, so you can have your children assist you. Today we'll be preparing mackerel croquettes. The ingredients are mackerel, escallion, mixed vegetables, red onions, and white onions. Also, we'll be using the breading process. The ingredients for the breading process are flour, egg wash, and the breadcrumb. For children who suffer from celiac disease, instead of using our regular breadcrumb, you can use the gluten-free breadcrumb. So what we'll be doing now is basically adding all our ingredients and mixing them together. So first we'll add the sweet potato. And sweet potato is rich in iron and potassium. We'll add the mackerel flakes.
So Randy, how long does this meal usually take to prepare?
It doesn't take more than 5 minutes. So what I would suggest to parents who work and have no time to prepare the meals in the morning, prep all ingredients from overnight, put them in the fridge, and then go ahead and deep fry them in the morning. And that will take the most 3 minutes. So what I'll have Sapphire doing now is just mixing the ingredients for me. Okay, well done, Sapphire. We'll now add some eggs for binding. Just mix the ingredients thoroughly. What we're going to do now is make some mini balls. So just squash everything together. It's almost the size of a golf ball. So we then coat it in flour, then egg wash, then breadcrumb. Sapphire is going to help me make one of the balls. Take up a small amount, squash it together. Squash it. Squash it with your hands like that. Squash it and just gently roll it. Okay, well done, Sapphire.
Okay, and how many of these balls do you usually recommend?
Normally for age group 5 to 11, I would recommend 8 ounces. So you're looking at about 4 to 5 of these balls. And portion control is very important because the correct portioning of food alleviates obese children. You have a whole lot of obese children all across the world, and overeating is one of the main factors. And now we'll move to the fryer. We're going to fry these croquettes until they are golden brown. And this should take no longer than 2 to 3 minutes. And the taste is very great. So the mothers and single mothers who have a short period on their hands to prepare breakfast in the morning, this is one of the easier way to go. And it's very nutritious. As you saw, we had a lot of vegetables in there, along with the mackerel that is rich in omega-3. You know, omega-3 is good for heart health. It prevents against heart disease. If you are a vegetarian, you can use veggie chunks or veggie mince.
Nutritious food, succulent dishes, superior workmanship, and excellent service. Jamaica is on the go. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Let's harness the indomitable spirit of our most valued resource, our people. Let's support our local businesses. After all, buying Jamaican means building Jamaica.
The government implores you to eat what you grow and grow what you eat, but thieves remain a constant obstacle in this process. Find out more on how you can help stop pradial larceny next.
Agriculture, the bread and butter of our farmers, the source of food for the nation, and a sector that contributes to economic growth and job creation for the country. However, despite the importance of this sector, it is being plagued by pradial thieves, resulting in billions of dollars in losses each year.
If that is not corrected, no matter what we do in this country to encourage agriculture, it will, if not totally fail. So the time has come. And I say to the pradial larceny unit, and I say to the security forces generally, the time has come to put an end to this plague on our land.
So government has put measures in place to safeguard the livelihood of farmers and protect consumers. The establishment of a pradial larceny prevention unit is one such measure that has been helping to decrease produce and livestock theft. Members of the unit have been meeting with farmers and sharing tips on how to protect their farms. But the conversation doesn't stop there. Persons and organizations with vested interest in agriculture are lending their support in the fight to curtail pradial larceny. Their technical high school has encountered pradial theft, and so its students have come up with a technology-based system to secure farms.
This is a system where we have integrated different technologies in order to give us one system. So we have integrated laser beams, light and sound and visual. So here, the laser beams will surround the circumference of your farm. So anywhere on the farm you break, a laser beam will come on. And once that laser beam come on, the thief won't know about the laser beam, it's only the farmer. So that will more give you security on your farm.
Using the same laser system, the students have also designed a portable security system called a handy box that farmers can set up anywhere on their farms. The farmer must place the laser box at any section of the field, and the receiver box should face it at the opposite end. If a thief should pass through these two units, a signal is given.
This is an example of the handy box. So this is a box containing the laser, and this is the box with the receiver. So once you break the laser beam, it gives you sound and also light. And the visual is 360 degrees on your farm.
Justin tells us some of the things that are needed to set up the security system on your farm.
You'd need your camera, and we'd use IP cameras on the farm that give us wireless signal, and also we need our lasers. And based on the size of your farm and the range of you'd buy that amount of lasers, and you'd also need lights and an amplifier to amplify your sound.
Applied technology demonstrated by our youth to reduce farm theft. They are making themselves part of the solution to a long-standing problem that's affecting the agriculture sector.
I know as a fact that the young generation is determined to make a success of their country. We in Jamaica are in good hands.
If you've ever wondered what your property taxes are used for, then wonder no more. Your property taxes provide revenue for the provision of public and community amenities throughout Jamaica, which are delivered by local government officials or parish councils. When you pay your property taxes, you aid with the following nation-building activities. Number 1, maintenance and expansion of our street lighting to ensure you are not walking in the dark at nights. Number 2, the collection and disposal of solid waste to prevent the pileup of garbage in communities. Number 3, the improvement of our community infrastructure. And number 4, repairs to fire stations and service vehicles, along with rehabilitation of our roads. Pay your property taxes online, inline, or via mobile tax units, and avoid being sought by the government. For more information, visit the Tax Administration website at www.jamaicatax.gov.jm or call them at 906-9463. Your property taxes and you, helping to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Thanks for watching Jamaica Magazine. I hope you found our program very informative. Let us know by sending your feedback to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm or via tweet @JISnews. You can also visit our website, jis.gov.jm, for more information. On behalf of the production crew, I am Theodore Henry. Take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.